This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. One of the things we have been concerned about as Cleveland Browns fans for basically the last month and a half is the left tackle situation. Jed Wills' health is uncertain, and even when his health is certain, his play isn't the most certain. While some exaggerate what his floor is, the truth about Jed Wills is that even at his best, he's hard to rely on as a left tackle. And it's hard for a lot of people to get used to the idea of your worst offensive lineman being your left tackle, given the way that we talk about offensive line. And the left tackle is usually the pinnacle of that position group. Another thing that's added into this is this recent interest of Jack Conklin maybe playing left tackle if Jed Wills is not able to start. Now, we are pretty sure that Jed Wills very much not likely to play in week one. He wasn't going to start. We already knew that earlier in the week. He did not practice the last 2 days. He's probably not going to be active for week one. Now, is this a concern going forward? I know that some people have brought up the issue that Jack Conklin is back at practice consistently, and he came off a knee injury, and Jed Wills is not yet, even though he had a knee injury. Like, is this something more drastic? Is this just as bad as what Jack's going through? And I think there's some clarity that needs to be put there. Jack Conklin suffered multiple knee ligament tears in his injury week one last year. Jed Wills got hurt, I believe, in week 9 against Arizona last year. So just the time between injuries is 2 months for these guys. Now, remember, they put out that weird statement that Jed would possibly be coming back during the year, that he's going to try to rehab this on his own without surgery, and that could put him in a timeline to come back for the playoffs. Well, they rehabbed, it did not come back in time, then they got surgery later. And this is probably why the timeline for Jed feels so off to a lot of people, because you think when a player gets injured, they get the surgery, the rehab starts. But if you try to get some rehab, right, to get back and play quicker, the downside of that is if you can't get back and play quicker and it does end up being surgery, you just delayed your surgery by like 4 to 6 weeks. So Jed had his surgery probably 12 to 14 weeks after Jack had his surgery. If you look at it like that, it makes sense that Jack Conklin is back, but Jed Wills is not. I don't think there's any reason to be overly concerned about Jed Wills and his ability to come back from this. I think he'll probably be back by week 2 or 3 by the latest. And that's why Jack is back despite having a more significant injury, and Jed is not, because Jed had his injury much later in the year than Jack Conklin did. I know to some people that might feel obvious, but there's a lot of misinformation going on about Jed Wills and Jack, because people like Jack Conklin, people don't like Jed Wills, and that leads to a lot of interesting takes that you read on social media. So that's one element of it. The other element of it is who's going to play left tackle versus Mike Parsons. Right. I think that's the big question that a lot of people have, a lot of Browns fans have, is who's going to play left tackle versus one of the best edge rushers in football is coming to town. And right now it feels like there's a real chance that we're going to throw James Hudson at him. And I would agree with you. If James Hudson was one-on-one with Micah Parsons all day, it's probably not going to be a good day for James Hudson. But that's not going to happen. And regardless of who plays left tackle, it's not going to be Jed, but even if it was Jed at this point, the plan would be the same. The plan is not changing. The same thing is true for Dallas, right? They have their rookie that's starting at left tackle. I promise you, they're going to have a very similar plan for Myles Garrett that the Browns are going to have for Micah Parsons. It's going to look very similar on both sides of this, right? The Cowboys, we know from experience, they're going to chip Myles Garrett. They're going to keep running backs on him. They're going to push guards to him, and they're going to use everything around Tyler Guyton to support him. They're not going to let Tyler Guyton in any world go one-on-one with Myles Garrett, because that'd be a death sentence. You wouldn't do that, even if that was a good left tackle. We saw what happened with Trent Williams when they let him go one-on-one with Myles Garrett. So that's probably not going to happen. They're not going to leave him one-on-one. The same thing is true for the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are not going to leave James Hudson one-on-one or Jack Conklin one-on-one with Micah Parsons, especially if Jack Conklin is playing his first game at left tackle since 2015. It's just not going to happen there. Now, I think it would probably make more sense, and this is going to be a really unpopular opinion because a lot of people are excited about the idea of Jack Conklin playing at left tackle, and I think there's a chance that it works out how people want it to, right? I think a lot of people, their hope is that Jack Conklin is as good as he was at right tackle in 2020 at left tackle, or somewhere around that. And the odds of that happening, in my eye, are so much lower than what I think everybody else feels like it's at. And maybe I'm the one that's wrong here, right? Maybe I'm being pessimistic about this, but I'm not really known for being pessimistic. So if I'm not super high on something, it's probably a good reason for it. The flip from right tackle to left tackle is one that's hard to judge if a player can do it. Some guys can flip from right to left with relative no issue and not have a drop off on either side. Some guys can do it after playing right tackle for a while. Some guys can't. Some guys stink at flipping, are significantly worse at flipping. And the guys that usually are worse at flipping are the guys who have more time at the tackle position on the opposite side that they've been playing at. Again, some guys can do it. Some guys can do it easy. Maybe Jack is one of those guys who can do it because he did play left tackle in college, but that was 10 years ago. There's a lot of stuff I used to be able to do in college that I can't do no more. Like, think about where your life was in 2015 and think about if you could do all the same stuff you did in 2015 in 2024. Hey, like, for all the people who bring up, oh, well, he played left tackle in college, as if it's like no big deal. Dog, you know how much I was deadlifting 400 pounds in 2015. I can't do that no more. Like, you know how much 10 years does to the body? How much ability 10 years takes away? Now, there's a chance that Jack Conklin might be able to do it because he's a pro athlete and he's been at the peak of his powers, but he's also had multiple injuries to his knees. He's had a 2 ligament tendon tear in his knees. He had a patella tendon tear the year before. He's been hurt a lot the last couple of years. He's missed a ton of games the last couple of years. The idea that he's just going to magically flip the left tackle, I mean, like, if it works out, it's a miracle. But let's not make a mistake on what the odds are for that. They're very low. I think the Browns know this. I think that's why they haven't come out and just said that Jack's going to play left tackle. I know people are thinking the Browns are doing this to be strategic versus the Cowboys, but the Cowboys aren't stupid. If I know that the Browns are going to have a plan around whoever plays left tackle, the Cowboys know that the Browns are going to have a plan around left tackle. There's no way in the world that the Cowboys think that the Browns are just going to go one-on-one Jack Conklin on Micah Parsons. That's not what, and if it is the case that the Browns go one-on-one Jack Conklin, Micah Parsons, they're going to prefer that. The Cowboys, there's no strategic advantage for not having it out there who's going to play the left tackle position. Like, I know some people think it's like this thing that they're keeping under the belt to keep the Cowboys on their toes. I promise you they don't care who's playing left tackle for the Cleveland Browns. If it's James Hudson, if it's Jack Conklin, they're going to attack that left side. That's been the game plan, even if Jed Wills would have been available to play, because the Browns have the obvious weak spot at the left tackle position, and that's the only place where you would potentially try to attack the Cleveland Browns. You're going to get them on a lot of stunts and twists. You're going to try to make them rotate onto the island. If they're doing 2-jet, 3-jet, you're going to try to get that left side on that man side so you can get one-on-one situations and you can twist and stunt and run Micah around them. That's just what their plan was going to be from day one. That's why they installed this from August to now. So there's no strategic advantage in hiding this. If the Browns felt super confident in Jack Conklin being able to play left tackle, he would be the named starter at left tackle for week 1 at the very least. I don't think they're super confident in it. And again, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm reading the tea leaves wrong, but I don't think they're super confident in it. I think they're looking at Jack Conklin playing left tackle in a break glass in case of emergency situation. Like if he has to hold up for a couple of quarters, then you're fine with that. But if you're talking about long-term starting, I think they would value other options other than that. And I know a lot of people are low on James Hudson because the practice reports weren't high on James Hudson. But it's important to remember, offensive linemen are always going to look a little bit worse in practice than they are going to be in the games because you're not running protection plans. You're not really like chipping and stunt. You're not doing all that stuff. It's just straight up man blocking. And if you put anybody in a man blocking situation against Myles Garrett, they're going to look awful. I mean, we did the same thing last year during joint practice with the Philadelphia Eagles. People were panicking, talking about how the Eagles need to replace Jordan Maeva. And it wasn't that. It's just Myles Garrett, So that is one part of it, right? I'm not as confident in the flip of Jack Conklin from right to left tackle as a lot of other people seem to be. We'll see if I'm right about that. The other thing I think it's important to remember is that even if you're not confident in Jack Conklin flipping from right to left, even if you're not confident in James Hudson holding it down at left tackle, the Browns have a plan, and it's a good plan to protect whoever is at left tackle. The offensive line is a collaborative position. And there's a saying that if you got 4 offensive linemen, you have 5. What that means is you can hide 1 offensive lineman if you got 4 good ones. If you got 3 good offensive linemen, you can usually hide 2, right? This is a known thing, especially depending on where those offensive linemen are. Look what the Browns were able to do last year. They weren't the worst offensive line in football last year, despite having the worst 2 tackles in all of football. They weren't great last year. They were pretty bad. Like if you look at it from the standards of the Cleveland Browns in 2020 to now, when they were putting Garyon Christian and James Hudson out there, of course you're going to be bad, but they were able to keep their head above water, which is more than what most teams could do in that situation. But that's because the Browns had 3 good offensive linemen to be able to make up for whatever they have. So that's one thing. The rest of the Browns offensive line is healthy and they're good. And that's going to be a huge boost to whoever plays left tackle because that gives you a lot of freedom. The second thing to remember is that it's not just going to be James Hudson one-on-one against Micah Parsons, right? Micah Parsons is going to move around. They're going to use him around. They're going to put him over the center. They're going to put him over all kind of different gaps. They're going to do all the stuff with Micah Parsons. I know it's a new defensive coordinator, but you would have to be stupid to look at what he did last year and decide you're just going to keep him at one spot. So you're going to move Micah around. And Micah's going to roam. So it's not just going to be all on James Hudson. But even if it was all on James Hudson, you still have Joe Bitonio next to James Hudson to help out. More importantly, you have David Njoku, who's a really good chip block guy at tight end to help out the left tackle situation. And then you also have Jerome Ford, who's a really good pass protector. One of the most underrated things about Jerome Ford is his ability to pass protect. And he's going to be in most snaps because Nick Chubb is not out there. So you have a triangle around that left tackle position. You have Joe Bitonio on this point. You have David Njoku on this point, and you have Jerome Ford at this point. You have a nice triangle of protection around that left tackle, which will probably be good to hold up to a respectable level, regardless of what you think of whoever is playing that left tackle position. So if it's Jack, if it was Jed, and look, next week or in 2 weeks when it is Jed, this going to be the same plan. That triangle is what really boosts that left tackle position. Again, it's not just going to be straight up man blocking. You're not going to leave them one-on-one on an island. The Cleveland Browns don't often do that with their left tackles. They're going to give that guy help, especially against a premier pass rusher. And that is why I am not worried as much about that left tackle position, despite not being overly confident in whoever's playing left tackle. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.